everyone, and welcome to what is going to be a bumper Prem review. I recorded an episode before I went away on a bunch of speaking engagements I was doing relating to my work in esports, and then I think it was the day I went away or the day before I went away, there was the Manchester City financial fair play story dropped, and I thought, well, I don't want to leave that out for a week. That's got potential ramifications for where we're going to go in the league, and it might impact on City, who've already had a bit of a wobble, as we'll get to. So I thought, you know what, let's just record it again from scratch, do a bumper edition, cover both of the weeks. So recording this on the Saturday after the previous Saturday when you were probably expecting the episode to drop. So I'm going to just go through it all in semi, kind of pseudo-chronological order and talk about the big stories and the big topics. Now, if you've been a regular follower of the Prem Review, you're going to know that one thing we've been talking about a lot is Everton and the problems that Everton have had. For me, when I was doing my Premier League predictions, I said, I think this will be the season Everton go down, and that was obviously predicated on the fact I don't put a lot of faith in their squad. I think there are problems all over the pitch. I think they've wasted an incredible amount of money, an insane amount of money, and they haven't bought a lot of quality with it, and you just can't really afford to do that in the Prem. Increasingly, what we're seeing is it's about the smart signings, it's about the scouting, it's about being able to go out there and find players that give you incredible value in terms of the price tag associated with them, and particularly on long-term deals, And they're all the teams that have gone out and scouted well, generally this season, are the ones that are punching above their weight. Obviously, I can point to Newcastle, with some of the signings they've made, like Bruno and Botman. But, it's not just that. It's Brighton. It's Fulham, It's Brentford. Another great example. And so, Everton haven't been smart in what they've done, and I think that their position in the league is genuinely reflective of their squad quality. And when you couple that to the fact they had Frank Lampard, who I don't think Frank Lampard was a particularly inspirational figure. I don't think he's going to cut it as a top-tier manager. He needs to get into the lower leagues and really learn the craft, along with Gerrard as well. They were always going to get big opportunities, but opportunities that were probably too big for them, just predicated on their reputation. He was not the man for a relegation dogfight. That much is clear. Everton looked to be tactically lacking in a number of games, in a number of areas. The only time I ever saw him apply an astute game plan was when they picked up a result against City, and they somehow managed to freeze Haaland out of the game. So at the end of the day, Lampard had to go. And I've been saying that for a while. He's been on fraud watch for the entirety of this season of Prem Review, and they finally did it. Everton bit the bullet and got rid of him. Now, what I was worried about was when they started talking about replacements. They were talking about, Bielsa coming in, formerly a Leeds, and I was like, listen, he loves an attacking game of football. He loves flair football, but they'll ship 4 goals every game if he's the appointment. And we saw that with Leeds. I mean, listen, we'll talk a bit about Leeds and what's going on with them managerially as well. But at the end of the day, he's a great character. He's super eccentric. We all love the story about him going out in a dressing gown armed with a hand grenade to confront some ultras, earning him the nickname El Loco. Everybody loves all this trivia about the dude. But again, not the man I would want if I was in a relegation dogfight. And what we've been saying on Prem Review the entire time, go get Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche is one of the most slept-on managers that's ever been in the Prem. And, I'm not saying this with hindsight. I've been saying this every week while he's been available. And Everton finally bit the bullet and went out and hired him. He had an incredible reception. I thought he handled the press masterfully on his arrival. He's already got allies in the dressing room from former Burnley players. Also, more than that, he is very good tactically. It's got to be said. Now, I did call it last episode, you're going to be playing Brexit ball, is what I called it. But look, when I watched Everton against Arsenal, Everton won 1-0 and won me money because I had a bet on it. I just had such a good feeling about Everton beating Arsenal that, I picked up some fucking crazy odds and put 150 quid on it, and, that was a fucking slap-up night out for the lads, so thank you, Sean Dyche. I fucking owe you big time, but anyway, it was like watching Burnley. They play squeeze box, they cut the pitch in half, what they do, so they play like super narrow, they all come in, it's very hard, you have to rely on long balls to break it up, and Arsenal have the quality to do that. So it was a risk, I would say, but just the level of discipline that Everton had playing that Brexit ball, they didn't have ridiculous amounts of possession in the game. I've seen a lot of people say Everton played Arsenal off the park. I think you need to go look at the stats. They had less than 30% possession. That wasn't playing Arsenal off the park. What they did was they gave Arsenal possession and then minimised opportunity through that. And even within that, Arsenal still managed to generate 15 shots. It's just that only 3 of them were on target. But what Everton did do, and this is another hallmark, and this is everything I was saying about Sean Dyche's tactics, is when they have possession, they'll do something meaningful with it. They'll generate a chance. I mean, they had 29% possession, but they had 12 shots and actually had more on target than Arsenal. That is Sean Dyche. That is Everton for the rest of the season now. Now, this game, by the way, was so you could see Arsenal, this is the test for them now. They're in this period of the season where, you're the front runners. The Premier League is very much a marathon and not a sprint, and everybody is going to have a dip in form. And this represented a defeat that came out of left field for many people, not so much for me. But it was a masterclass. Arteta was shown something here today, and also it's got to be said, you get a 1-0 win against Arsenal from a set piece goal. That's classic. That's how you beat a team like Arsenal. They contained them as well as they could. They gave them possession. They neutralized a lot of the threat. And ultimately, for me, I thought it was not just a massive defensive performance from the likes of, Tarkowski and guys like that at the back. And Cordy, who's, he's gonna be loving life at Burnley now. Sorry, at Everton now. Sorry, I'm still thinking about Burnley in my brain. But, Onana was the dominant force in the game. He dominated a midfield as good as Arsenal's. And, if it hadn't have been for Ramsdale making a bunch of, world-class saves, they could have snuck, a 2-0 or a 3-0. It could have been crazy. It wouldn't have been fair. But that's just the nature of the beast sometimes. And obviously, Dyche came out. He's looking like the cat who's got the cream, and rightly so. This, for me now, is an accelerator pad for Everton to kick on up the table, because as you look at what's going on, I still think Forest are going to get sucked into it. We're going to talk about why when we talk about Leeds versus Forest, because Forest are the most boosted team in the Premier League. But, Bournemouth and Southampton look to be gone. Leeds are getting sucked in. West Ham are still bad. Wolves have got trouble. You don't know what Leicester's going to do. Obviously, Everton have real chances now. This put them up to 18 points when you consider 12th is only on 24, and that's Palace, at the time of Everton beating Arsenal. Then that obviously means they're only really 2 games out of getting a comfortable mid-table finish, and Sean Dyche is going to pull them rabbit out the hat and keep them up. And I've been saying it since day one. This is the best appointment Everton could have made, and it's probably the best decision Everton have made in about 5 or 6 years. So Brexit ball will keep Everton up, and then who knows what happens next season. If they back their man and stop insisting on forcing the manager to have signings they don't want, inexplicably so, I'm telling you, Dyche is gonna do big things at Everton. They're gonna get back into it, back to being a mid-table team. This will be the worst of it. So a great game, and watch out for Onana, by the way. I'll just say, I know it's easy to say because he had a man of the match performance, but Onana is the raw. He's the raw material. He's got the potential to be so good. So many great industrious midfielders that can play box to box. Almost like a Conte kind of character. But if he gets the development, if he adjusts, if he continues to add to his game, and Dyche is going to use him in the way he's used him here, which is exactly what I thought he would do. Him and Iwobi basically, and hold him, but then break him when they're going forward, use him width when they can. It's gonna be great to watch. Everton will have a gem in that player. He'll probably represent the best piece of transfer business they've done in a while. So 1-0 out of nowhere. But if you've been listening to the Prem Review, You would have known I called it the whole time. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about Southampton. Just while we're down in the bottom of the table. Why not? Because Brentford, back on the 4th of Feb, gave them an absolute tuning. 3-0, could have been more. I don't know what more I can really say about Brentford. Brentford are one of the revelatory stories. You know, obviously the Leicester winning the Premier League is always going to eclipse everything that's gone before. But Brentford turning themselves into a solid, reliable Premier League team, challenging for Europe. This is an immense story, and they've done it by same old story that you have to do in the Prem. Really smart signings, really good value for money signings, and their squad, I think, is fantastic. They made Southampton look like amateurs. Like, it was embarrassing. It was like watching a cup game where one of the teams just didn't belong in it. Really good performance all round. You know, I love this front three that Brentford have. Mbomo, Wissa, Tony is the tip of the spear. When Tony's fit, I think he's one of the best English strikers going. I really rate him that highly. Like, I mean, I said before we went to the World Cup that for me, Ivan Toney should have gone over Callum Wilson. I say that as a Newcastle fan. I'm convinced that the reason Toney didn't go is because of his FA betting charges, which still haven't been resolved, and yet Toney hasn't let it affect him at all. And this should be as well the other thing that's worrying for Southampton, particularly when they go up against the likes of Brentford. Southampton spent money at the end of the January transfer window. They made their record signing. Sulemana, who was recorded as being the quickest player at the World Cup. And, you know, these are gambles. And for me, I think they're going to regret spending whatever it worked out at. It was 25 or something for Sulemana. I think it was Onuachu was their other signing. They paid about 10, I think, for him. So, you know, you're dropping 30 mil before you're going to be relying on parachute payments if you get relegated. And I'm telling you, they don't have a great squad. And the appointment Southampton's made in terms of Nathan Jones, I said the job was too big for him. I'm out now. I don't even want him to succeed anymore. I've never seen a manager so far out of his depth in the Premier League. Like, you can joke about Gerrard being on fraud watch or Lampard being on fraud watch and all that stuff. Nathan Jones is not fit for the Prem, and his head's gone. He's bottled it. I mean, they lose this game, and he came out and he did, by the way, we have a running joke here, you know, me and my boys. We call him the narco man, you know, because the question is this guy a fucking crackhead? It's a legitimate question. We call him the narco man because of that. Because, you know, at the end of the day, the shit he says in the interviews post-match, I'd have no confidence. He doesn't strike me as a guy who's communicating effectively with players. Well, you know, after they lost here against Brentford, he come out and he did this interview where he said, you know, it's my fault because I've been pandering to players and and I'm not going to do that anymore because, you know, I've let players sort of dictate what we do. And it was like some mad garbled, you know, it's like drug psychosis, paranoia nonsense. I was like, what are you talking about? You're the gaffer. Doesn't matter if you've come from a lower league. Once you're the boss, you're the boss. You walk through them doors and you've got to inspire the boys and tell the boys, we're going to stay up and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it by listening to me. You don't want to do that, then that's fine. The reserves are over there. You can play with them. Play out your contract till your heart's content. But I've got a system, I've got a way of doing things, and it's going to work, and that's why I've got the job. And instead, he's publicly saying he's let the players down, let Southampton down, let the fans down, because he's been pandering to the players who have been pulling his strings. It's just it's so mental, what he's saying week in, week out, and he followed that up again, you know, just today with another inexplicable claim, which I'll repeat it in a bit, but he did say, you know, once Wolves went down to 10 men at half a time, you know, he got a whole half against 10 men. He said it was sort of an advantage for them because they could throw the kitchen sink at us. It's like, in what world, you know, in your crack-addled mind, what are you saying? Seriously, I'm asking a legit question. The things he's saying are so mad. I've never heard anything like it in my life, you know, so it is mad. that Nathan Jones is saying stuff like this, and obviously I don't really think he's a crackhead, but he's talking like a narco man, like it's just so mental. Like and as a Welsh boy, obviously as well, like we've all got our own opinions. Well, I've got Welsh mates who live up here, and we're all just like we all wanted him to come good and do it for the rest of us. He just let us all down massively. So Southampton probably should sack him now because he's just not winning games, outside of the Carabao Cup, which, a distraction he could have done without, frankly. But yeah, just nonsense. Like, Southampton are just down as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what sort of miracle could happen. Everton got their Sean Dyche. Like, who's coming to Southampton? Who's going to replace Nathan Jones after a handful of games and dig him out of the hole they're in? I really can't see it. I don't know who's on the market. So also as well, while we're talking about teams getting battered and being humiliated, Liverpool lost 3-0 to Wolves. And this one is probably, just when you think things can't get worse for Liverpool, you'd think like you've seen the worst performance of the season. I don't know where to begin. I really don't. They've had 58% possession, generated 22 shots, only managed 4 on target. They've had 7 corners, haven't created a meaningful chance from a set piece, and somehow Wolverhampton Wanderers have absolutely bossed them in the midfield. Moutinho and Ruben Neves just absolutely just a dominant force. Again, Neves was like easily man of the match here, and it was just poor. And so I've said it, like, basically Liverpool they're Tottenham in red. That's what's going on there. Their midfield is so dysfunctional, lacking energy, lacking creativity. On top of that, they've got real problems at the back. Like, I thought Matip had another nightmare. Like, I don't know who thinks Matip is Liverpool caliber, but like that you're wrong. Like, he ain't. And you think about the other players that are coming on. It's shocking. I think probably. Not the first time I've said that this season. Old man Milner was probably the best in this game. I watched this game with disbelief. Like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Maybe Alisson, I guess, because Wolves did have some chances and really tested the keeper. Maybe Robertson, I don't know. But put it this way, it was none of your big names. If you're a Liverpool fan right now, you're thinking about, like, the horror of, like, it was already a bad season for you. Your midfield was already dysfunctional. You've lost Van Dijk. You're playing Matip and Gomez, and it's just a nightmare. Plus, they're not getting the protection from the midfield because Henderson looks exhausted. He looks shot to pieces. But all right, at least we've got our strikers. Well, no, you don't, because Gakpo has been an absolute bust. Like, this is always the risk, by the way. But I don't know why people fall for this every big international tournament. There's these players that, like, always impress. They have great stats. They look good. They look mustard. And you think, well, we better go and buy them. But it's like, I don't know what it is about international football compared to something as fast-paced as the Prem. It's like you are playing a different game. And Gakpo, the Prem's too big for him as he currently stands. He just doesn't do enough. He doesn't do anything. You add to that, Salah's dip in form. You add to that, Núñez needs multiple chances to score. He'll get his goals in a functional, creative midfield, but Liverpool don't have that. So Núñez is now under increasing pressure, especially with Salah taking a dip in form, to bury everything he's going to do. And Gakpo was meant to be Mr. Clinical, if you look at his stats coming out of the Dutch league, but that's not reality either. Liverpool just have it's a flimsy squad. It's a full rebuild at this point. They've got key players that can build around. They've got a fantastic spine of the team. I don't think Salah's going to stay like this for too long, But obviously they've got other players. Van Dijk, Alisson. You've got players you can build around. But unfortunately, this is a much bigger job than people thought. And I think Liverpool, they've got to consign themselves now to the reality they're not going to get a Champions League spot. It's not going to happen, and they need to plan around that and come up with a scouting policy that's going to get them an immediate lift, but one that isn't going to be reliant on big name players who are going to be all mardy-arsed about not playing in the Champions League. It's going to be tough. I think Klopp's the man for the job still. I've never doubted Klopp. I think he's fantastic. I think all that happened here was he's just took his eye off 1 or 2 players and where they're actually at, and didn't really think about replacing them in the time frame he's had, he would have realistically have had to do it. And that's just something you can't predict. You can't predict, 3 players all suddenly coming back, beat up, out of shape, from a World Cup. That should never have happened. At the time it did, and looking really leggy and exhausted, or even just chronic dips in form for certain players. So yeah, Liverpool really got it all to do, but Wolves, sometimes when you make a managerial change, it just transforms a team. And Lopetegui is doing a fantastic job. I mean, you got to just give it to him. He always seems as well to have a game plan. I really like it when gaffers come in and they've got a plan per opposition. The team has a different shape to it, or a different lineup, or there's a thoughtful component to everything he's doing. He's nursed Traore back to health. Traore now is having impact in these Wolves games when he couldn't even get off the bench that long ago. His attitude has been sort of, reset along like so many. And Wolves, for a Wolverhampton team that has struggled to score goals, to bang in 3, be 2-0 up before 15 minutes against Liverpool. Obviously, Matip's own goal. I mean, like I say, he just had a nightmare. This is like his worst performance since joining Liverpool, and should probably be one of the last ones he ever does. It's an embarrassment. But, like I said, Neves bossed the midfield, and, they banged in 3 goals without really, they still don't have a fantastic striking option yet. That's just, again, that's one of those, Liverpool have given it to them, no doubt about that, but you've got to set up to take what your opponent gives you, and Lopetegui's doing that with Wolves week in, week out. Wolves are going to be okay for my money. I look at the teams that have fight and bite and quality, and I look at the teams that are going to struggle, and I just think Wolves are definitely closer to the former than the latter. I think Wolves stay up now, no doubt in my mind. I had them a little bit higher up in the table. Who knows, maybe Lopetegui can, make them kick on up there. Other story, got to talk about United. They're turning the corner. Ten Hag has really put them in pole position now to get top 4. I didn't think that was possible, because I even underestimated the man to a degree, even though I was saying he's going to be your best manager since Sir Alex Ferguson. Stand by that assessment. But I thought he wouldn't have I thought he would lack the testicular fortitude to kick out Maguire and kick out Ronaldo, and he's done that. Ronaldo's out the club, Maguire's on the bench. This has now given you a comfortable back 4. He's took Rashford and set him the challenge of living up to the standards he needs to do. And, against Palace, it was 2-1 United. It was touch and go at the end. United went down to 10 men. We'll talk about that in a second. But, once United got the early pen, dispatched by Fernandes, who else? United were in control for most of this game, and they just had a steal about them, a fight about them. Listen, I don't care what anyone says. Sometimes people throwing handbags on the pitch, it can be a sign of petulance. It can be a sign of people giving up and they just want to get red cards and, get off the field. Just get away from the sour taste of defeat. But it can also be proof that your boys they're willing to fight and die for a cause. And when you talk about Crystal Palace at Old Trafford, that shouldn't be the type of game you ever feel stressed about. Well, this team, they're not giving an inch in any of their games right now. They don't want the likes of Palace coming here and picking up a point and everyone saying, oh, well, we're still on course for a top 4. In fact, in reality, the way things are panning out in the league, with Man City looking shaky and having problems, and Arsenal having their shake, you probably got to say United are in the title hunt. I mean, it might be hyperbolic. It might be like one of those short-sighted knee-jerk things the media does. I say 8 points adrift. With, a little under half of the season to go. I've seen crazier things. I'm a Newcastle fan. I remember when we threw away our 12-point lead when Keegan went to pieces and Sir Alex Ferguson Jedi mind fucked him. So, at the end of the day, it's definitely possible. And I think the Man United players palpably feel it's possible. And Palace at Old Trafford now, under Ole, this is the type of game. I mean, United fans know this is the type of game you would slip up at. And even though you nearly did here, what was the difference? I mean, just guts and determination and digging deep. And, Martinez was amazing. Shaw, I think Shaw's been wrongly maligned. Varane, this was like a titanic defensive performance when the chips were down last 20 minutes. Now, onto the red card, I watched Match of the Day as well after watching the game, and I was like, they were saying that's a really harsh red card. Now, Casemiro went up and there was a melee, on the side of the field, and he's grabbed somebody by the neck and pushed him. And at the end of the day, the rules are clear in the Premier League. You can't put your hands up and on another player around the face or the neck area. And people, I don't know why the pundits were saying it was a harsh decision. For me, if you get caught doing that on a VAR replay, you're probably going all day long. And there's always going to be a little bit of United bias. In any Premier League punditry. I think the red card was sound. I think Casemiro was a little bit perplexed, a little bit unlucky maybe, that he got spotted on the VAR. But, you don't get a red card because you just don't put yourself in that position. And I don't think it was hostile or he was choking a player or doing anything. I think he was, having his shirt tugged and he was just like, fuck off, leave me alone. But that's the nature of the beast. Didn't cost United too much. Might do. Because obviously it's a violent conduct sending off, so he's going to be serving, more than one game for that. And they need Casemiro in this team. He's the missing piece, that they really needed for so long. Blew my mind because I really thought he was on a Ten Hag style player, but his quality just speaks for itself. Still got the fire, still got the drive, and just a perfect foil to be like an avatar for Ten Hag on the pitch. United looking really good. Palace, a little bit of fight at the end. Not enough, but they're still going to be comfortably mid-table. So next up was Forest versus Leeds. Leeds are getting sucked into that relegation battle at this moment in time. They made signings in January. They're continuing this project of, going out there and signing, American, MLS experienced players or, players that are, young and have a lot of upside if they develop. I think Leeds have made some, decent transfers. It just hasn't come together for them. And look, at the end of the day, taking on the likes of Forest, I think even away from home, I think Leeds have certainly got to set themselves the standard of beating the likes of Forest. Now, I've said repeatedly on this podcast, I believe Forest are going to get sucked in the relegation zone. I had them as one of the teams going down. They've made 20 plus signings, crazy amounts of signings, and people have said to me, Richard, you're wrong. You don't even watch Forest, obviously, if you think they're potential relegation fodder. Well, look, at the end of the day, I've said before, Brennan Johnson has basically got them 9 points, I think it is now this season. That's the only reason where they are in the table, because I looked up the stats before the game, and this is what I mean about them being boosted. They are the most artificially placed team in the Premier League, and so they have scored, before this game, it was 16 goals, which put them at 19th out of 20. From open play, only 10. That made them the lowest in the league. Number of shots they've had, 213. That puts them at 18th in the league. Number of shots on target, 20th out of 20 in the league. Number of touches in the opponent's box, 331, making them 20th out of 20 in the league. And their shot conversion is just 7.5%, putting them at 17th overall in the Premier League. Their attacking stats are garbage. They're absolute mints. And it's incredible to me that pretty much based on the efforts of one player. And yeah, they beat Leeds 1-0 here with Brennan Johnson again getting the only goal. It's Brennan Johnson I'm talking about. It's crazy to think that pretty much he is the one that has got them to where they are in the league, and that if it wasn't for 3 titanic individual performances by him, if you take off those points, you take off 9 points, it ain't good. You know what I mean? They're in the bottom 3. So I still think that, Brennan Johnson's form notwithstanding, those stats aren't going to change. That is a fundamental problem with the squad that they have. And this was just an insanely nervy Leeds performance and setup, and ultimately one that cost Jesse Marsch's job. It was a classic Leeds story. They've got quality in the squad. I mean, everyone's talking about, names like Gnonto and stuff like that now. But, they've got quality everywhere. People have forgotten about what Bamford was doing last season. This one was weird as well, because it reminded me of, like, Football Manager, because Nottingham Forest had just signed a new keeper in the form of Navas, and straight in the team, obviously. And I think Navas was basically the man of the match. Like, it's him or Brennan Johnson, basically. Like, made a bunch of saves. Leeds can certainly feel that their finishing should have been better. But also, look, Sinistera had chances, Bamford had chances, Gnonto had chances. Everyone's had chances for Leeds, and it was sort of crazy to think that they weren't able to get a goal against the not very good Forest team. Harrison as well. But, they played lone striker. They played lone striker and they played narrow. And so it's like, you're not really creating any space for your striker when you do that. The striker has to be so good at sitting on the shoulder of a defender and spinning off. And, best will in the world. Like, Bamford's great when he just gets a little bit of space, just a little bit of separation, and Bamford's good. But he was being marked out of the game, very tightly monitored, because everybody knew he was going to be the focal point of the attacks. And when that happens, sure, it's going to create some space for Sinistera and Gnonto, but if they don't put their chances away, then realistically with the other players they've got, Adams, Harrison, Roker, what are we really talking about creatively? And so for me, it showed that Marsch had a real lack of confidence in his ability to go out and boss a team like Forest, which, by the way, just stats-wise, they did. Like I said, 70% possession, 10 shots, 4 on target, more than enough to get a goal, more than enough to get a result. But in the end, they didn't. They bottled it, and it cost Jesse Marsch's job. Now, loads of people were saying in the press, look, they've jumped the gun a little bit there. And it's just like, yes and no. I think if you're going to have a knee-jerk reaction to losing away to Forest and fire your manager after backing him in the January transfer window, maybe you should have got rid of him sooner, or not backed him in the transfer window, saved the money and looked to get a new gaffer. I don't know, what the right thing to do there is, but it feels wrong to back a man and then sack a man. But I've just got to say it. If you don't have confidence in your players, if you don't have confidence in your team, if you don't have confidence in your tactics, you're gonna struggle. You're gonna struggle to hold on to a job in the Premier League. And so for me, probably probably has to go. The Forest game was unforgivable to be that negative. And what was also crazy was Bamford came out and said, look, it was very easy for Forest because they only had me to worry about. And I can't even remember who it was. Chris Sutton, come on, mate, stop pretending you were the big I am. Outside of Blackburn in 92 or whatever, what did you do? Yeah, we all loved the SAS, Sutton and Shearer, but let's be real, one of those S's certainly was doing the heavy lifting. Anyway, Chris Sutton said Bamford was a joke for saying that. And, it's never nice to talk about stuff, especially after a manager's been fired, but I don't think it hurts anybody. I think players are entitled to opinions. I've always said as much, and, I thought that was like a mad overreaction. I think Bamford's probably been frustrated all season, which tells its own story. I think Leeds are a much better team than where they are in the table. I think they've got better players than where they are in the table. I think they're going to be much better next season. This is a write-off season for them. And now, without Jesse Marsch, they just need to have a think about, who is going to be able to bring in long-term success and develop this, very talented young squad we've got. Does it need to be an American? I don't necessarily think so. So we're going to wait and see what the long-term appointment for Leeds is. And that leads us to, of course, the big one. I guess we just start with the financial fair play stuff first, and then we'll get to the game. Man City have finally been charged, pending a long investigation, with breaking financial fair play rules in the Premier League. I think now the final toll is something like 113 alleged breaches. And just if you don't know what's going on here, let me just give you the full history quickly as I can. The financial fair play with City, in case you're not aware of it. So basically, when they got took over by their new owners, the very wealthy oil magnates, lots of people have been speculating about their transfer doings, their sponsorships, and all of that stuff. And in 2018, I think it was, there was a hacker, I think, from Portugal that had been able to get some private documents. He was able to get into agents' emails. He was able to get into sponsorship emails, corporate executive emails. And in the end, he sent what he had appropriated to a German newspaper called Der Spiegel, which, yes, Germans know that it's a rag and all of that, but they did publish these leaked documents. And in particular, among one of the main allegations contained within a series of exposés was that the club had inflated the value of the sponsorship deal they had in. They misrepresented the sponsorship deal so they could spend more money to flaunt financial fair play rules. And then this led to an investigation which came out in 2020. Basically, UEFA had said there'd been serious breaches between 2012 and 2016, which I believe is the time period that pertained particularly to the sponsorship. And so they said they're banned for 2 years from European competitions. But that ban then got overturned at a court of arbitration. They said that the evidence wasn't strong enough, the ban wasn't warranted, so City were allowed to compete once again in Europe. But the other thing that was going on was these documents and other ones we don't know, it was sort of intimated, well, look, that's Europe. That's Germany, that's UEFA. Why isn't the Prem investigating this? And so the Premier League started to conduct its own investigation, and they now believe they have evidence of 113 breaches that would impact on their Premier League status and the financial fair play rules in the league, and they go back potentially as far as 2009. And also, on top of that, they could face an additional charge because the league is saying they haven't cooperated with the investigation, which they say they began in 2018. So it's pretty serious on its face. I mean, 113 breaches of financial fair play. That's nothing to be sniffed at. We've seen clubs penalised for a lot less than that in terms of, having transfer suspensions and points deductions and all sorts of other stuff going on. So it's certainly serious. On top of that, it's definitely worth noting City have absolutely said that we are innocent. We've done nothing wrong. We've definitely cooperated. And we've got a body of irrefutable evidence that shows we are innocent of these allegations. And this should be established already because a lot of it is the same evidence we showed at a European Court of Arbitration to get our European ban overturned. So, on top of that, Pep Guardiola came out and was feeling like he's had some strange ones, hasn't he, in the media. He said some crazy shit lately. You think about what went on with Cancelo and all these weird intimations with Foden, a strange interview where he said, were you angry with the players, and all of this. And then he said that, I've got it in front of me here, I'll read it verbatim. When asked about it at a press conference, he said, my first thought is we are already being condemned. What's happened after Monday is the same as what happened with UEFA. We were condemned. We have just a charge. With the accusation from UEFA, the club proved we were completely innocent. Why should we now be condemned? 19 teams of the Premier League are accusing us without the chance to defend. And the words of my chairman, my CEO, my owner explain everything. So you know what side I am on. I would say we are lucky. We live in a marvellous country where everyone is innocent until proven guilty. We didn't have this opportunity, though, because we are already sentenced. What is going to happen, I don't know, but personally, I am happy we are here. Like UEFA, we have the chance to defend ourselves. I think we have good lawyers. I think the Premier League, supported by 19 teams, will have good lawyers too. Just in case we are not innocent, we will accept that what the judge in the Premier League decides. So this is wild, because now obviously people are speculating what could potentially happen to City. So, okay, let's talk about that. What could happen to City? Well, I mean, look, I don't think the Premier League is going to kill one of their cash cows with kicking them out of the league. I mean, I've seen ridiculous, lurid headlines that just have no bearing in reality, where people are saying, oh, well, actually, if they're found guilty of all 113 charges, they'd be kicked out of professional football altogether. They'd have to apply to play in the Vanarama Conference. Like, shut the fuck up, City in the Vanarama Conference. What fucking dream? What mad pipe dream is that? That will never happen. Well, they'll have all their championships rescinded. Well, what would that fucking mean? Are you going to go back retroactively and give? You won the Premier League this year. You won it when City did. Oh, great. Yeah, cheers. I'll put that out. Did we get the trophy? Put it in the club cabinet? What a waste of time. So that's not going to happen either. That functionally doesn't do anything. What's likely to happen? There's probably going to be a lengthy legal battle where concessions will be made on all sides, and eventually those charges are going to get whittled down to a number of key battlegrounds that they feel, both sides feel they can fight. Then what will happen there is people will be like, look, if you agree to this, we won't do this. It'll save us some money. The Premier League's not going to want to fight it. For as they just want to get a definitive ruling out there, and begrudgingly City will probably settle on like a small points deduction, probably a sizable fine, and probably some sort of fuckery with their transfer activity, maybe banned from making signings for a year or two or something. I don't know. But that's as bad as it's going to get, if it gets that bad at all. But what I do think is, what people probably want to pay attention to more than anything is City are one of the teams that already said, we want to get into that Super League, and then they walked it back. Well, if the Premier League treats them poorly in this, and they feel aggrieved, and they feel like they're being bullied, or, whatever nonsense they're going to come out with, they're probably going to be a lot warmer to the idea of the Super League, which I think they're going to try the Super League again in the next 2-3 years. It's just too much money, and too many clubs in the elite level football ecosystem want it, and we're starting to see more and more Saudi interest in clubs, Qatari interest in clubs, and in the end, when it's going to be all of those types of owners owning things, even the Americans have pieced out, that's when it's going to happen. That's when it's all going to go through, and it'll just be, rich oil nation owned clubs competing in a Super League away from the rest of the football ecosystem. That's the end game. There's no doubt in my mind that's going to happen, no matter how many fan protests there are. You don't fight this off forever, unfortunately. We open the gates, we open Pandora's box. The other thing that could come of this, Pep might leave. I mean, if he feels the Prem's handled it bad, or if they get a massive points deduction. He already seems to be having some weird issues with the dressing room right now, and they are capsizing and not capitalising on being able to get hold of Arsenal, who, they're faltering at the moment. Very strange. So I think ultimately it's going to have an impact on City, for sure, even just the looming nature of the charges. But people fantasizing about Man City being kicked out the Prem, or, they're on the same stuff Nathan Jones is, allegedly, in a video game. Anyway, so City, they had to go away to Tottenham. We all know Tottenham have been a bit of a soft touch lately, and in the end, they were pretty poor, I thought. Tottenham certainly haven't looked great all season. They look great here, I thought. There was just a number of City players that just looked not to be at the top of their game, top of their abilities. It was only 1-0, and, it's worth noting Spurs did have a player sent off late. But in seasons gone by, that would have prompted a 2-1 City turnaround. They would have just been relentless in terms of pressing, relentless in terms of how they create chances. But no, this was actually super quiet. It was very strange. It was another one of those games where Haaland seemed to be neutralised, or they weren't using him properly. The best attacking option was, Mahrez. Haven't watched the game, but for Tottenham, they got to play like how they like to play. It was the classic Tottenham, right? If we can just keep the ball just in front of the opponent's defence and keep moving it around with Bentancur, just sat behind, and you've got Son and Kane and Kulishevsky just looking to make chances, and Perisic just looking to make chances for each other, and overlaps and things like that. That's what they like to do. That is when Tottenham are at their best. And City gave it to them. And it's so weird because, we were talking about Palace giving it to Spurs. You wouldn't expect City to do that. It was just very strange. There wasn't a press, there wasn't an aggression from City, and they didn't do a lot with the, not insignificant amount of possession they had. But pretty much in terms of shots, it was, even Steven and Harry Kane, who, you remember the drama from the pre-season. Harry Kane could have been at City had it gone that way. But 1-0, Harry Kane breaking a record every week, probably going to get Shearer's goal record. That was, he went past Jimmy Greaves, 267 goals for Spurs. And Tottenham on this day were good value for it. Obviously, they're in the hunt for fourth place with Chelsea and Liverpool adrift. It really should be a gimme. Now, if there's one thing this season has definitely proven, that the, caretaker manager bump can be absolutely real. You sack a gaffer, bring in a new gaffer, even have an interim gaffer, seems to always give the teams a bump. And Jesse Marsh's Leeds, they had a really tough follow-up game. You lose away to Forest, putting you right just above the bottom three. What are you going to do? Well, you've got to go away to United. Now, in past years, Leeds United was always like a bloodbath, of huge historic rivalry there, blood and thunder. But, the past years, both of the clubs have been, shadows of themselves. That's kind of got put on, shelved, put on the wayside a little bit. But this was exactly, I don't think I've ever seen a bump as quick as this from, last time I saw a bump as quick as this, it was in a fucking Hollywood toilet, Hollywood bathroom. Gnonto scored for Leeds in the first minute, and just ridiculous. Like, Leeds were just relentless pressure. They went in, they could have had, more. Then obviously they get a break. Varane with an own goal. Just again, Gnonto just being a tearaway. And Ten Hag, at 2-0 down, it looked like finally he was going to get, found out, and maybe there was going to be some valid criticism coming his way. I will say, though, he absolutely knew what to do to change the game. He got criticism at the start of the game because I think he put Rashford out on the right side as opposed to the left. That was just the way he set up against them. But in the end, Rashford, it's inevitable. He's going to get a goal for you these days. And, the subs he made was so astute, you've got to give it to him. I still think playing Weghorst is the right option over Martial. I know he didn't look particularly effective in this game. I think that was just, one of those. But Sabitzer made his debut. And yes. Good, great bit of business. Sabitzer, for me, in there straight away alongside Fred. No Casemiro, obviously. He looked to me like, right, good. This is a guy that's going to help Man United consolidate in midfield. Because, when you play Casemiro, like, best will in the world, I know Fred's trying. I know everybody likes him. He's not United for me. He never has been. I think he's one of the, like I say, for me, I've always called him, he's just Eric Jemba 2. He's just the sequel. He's not good enough. And, McTominay obviously is a nightmare as well. The idea of Sabitzer and Casemiro, well, holy shit, suddenly we're talking. Eriksen, obviously out long term, but I never thought Eriksen could boss a midfield by himself anyway, and was always going to need some help. Now, I think down the home straight, people aren't going to fuck with this opinion, but I think Eriksen getting injured might be a bit of a blessing in disguise, because I think Sabitzer and Casemiro as a centre pairing is just better, infinitely better. I think Eriksen, yes, he's got creativity. I don't know if that's necessarily where he's struggling right now. You think about a lineup where, you've paid all this money for Anthony and he's been disappointing. You've got Garnacho, everyone's raving about him. I don't see it. I see potential and little else. But you've still got Fernandes, you've still got Rashford, you've got Weghorst come in. It's not like you haven't got, Dalot and Shaw like to get down, or, Wan-Bissaka when you play him. So, look, there's plenty of creativity potentially in this squad. And, you just need the steel. You just need, you've got it in the back four. You just need it in the centre of the park. So anyway, Weghorst came off. Sancho comes on. And you've just got to say, just a brilliant substitution. I thought Sancho was done at United. I didn't think we'd see him again. I thought even his stories about picking up a knock were suspect. But Sancho came on, got his goal, but obviously was built up. He was in the build-up for lots of attacking play for United and looked like, wow, this could be like almost like an additional signing in January, because Sancho's been nowhere. And it's so crazy to me when you think about like how little the press talked about a £90 million English player not going to the World Cup. Like, no one gave a shit. That's how bad things have been for Sancho since he moved to United. But there's a way back for him. Ten Hag even made the point in the post-match of singing his praises. He said, like, he's a brilliant player. He's been brilliant in training. He's going to be brilliant for us. It's like, wow, okay, you've really turned it around. Whatever you've done, Sancho, you've turned it around. Don't fuck it up now. So imagine a world where Sancho comes back and plays to even like 80% of his capabilities. Weghorst's in, helping back with the tackling, holding the ball up. Rashford's form continues, and Sabitzer goes on like Boston midfield with Casemiro. No more Fred, no more McTominay. Seriously, I said it earlier, I'll say it again. I think United could sneak into this title race and it could go right down to the wire. Now, they only drew here, but from 2-0 down at home, Ten Hag shows he's got the tactical nous to dig you out of a hole as well as everything else he does. And this is the point of the season. It's February. People are tired. People are knackered. Injuries are mounting. New signings are bedding in. This is when everyone has their wobble. This is when everybody starts to go, fucked up and form goes out the window. So if he can keep grinding out results during this time period, yeah, with no Casemiro, I say hats off to him for clawing back a lost game. But I also say Leeds, this shows what Leeds are capable of. And if they get the right manager, Leeds are going to be all right this season. As I keep saying, better next season, which is the key. Then, obviously, today. What about today? The big ones worth talking about. Let's just start with West Ham, Chelsea. Chelsea continue to be an utter embarrassment to football the world over. This one, a 1-1 draw when you've spent the money you've spent and you've dominated the way you've dominated this first half. What does it tell you? Well, I mean, listen, what they're doing with their lineups, it's embarrassing, frankly. The fact that they have refused to sign a striker, almost out of some insane stubbornness by the owner. They've gone in for almost every other midfielder or defender in the world. And Chelsea are out there bidding and spending that money, what is it, like £600 million on like 17 players or whatever they've done. It's fucking crazy. And yet, not ne'er a striker to be found. And I'm going to tell you this, Havertz as a striker, don't make me laugh. Don't make me laugh. You look at how many goals Chelsea scored in the Premier League. It's only like 22, 23, I don't know. But it's not much. And Havertz, obviously, is not going to be banging them in for fun. He's being played as a lone striker with an absolutely unbelievable midfield behind him. It's unbelievable. All of the quality. He should be in the box and getting chances. If he was a real striker, he'd be in Hog's heaven. He'd have 10 chances a game because his movement would be there and he'd be in the box. Instead, what does Havertz do? Comes deep and plays like another midfielder. So I've joked about it on the Discord with the boys. They're basically playing an actual zero striker formation, Chelsea. I just don't know how this happens. I don't know how you get through a transfer window knowing your only striker is Aubameyang and you don't want him anymore because he was a Tuchel man and doesn't even want to be in Chelsea, and you've left him out the Champions League. Also got to say as well, by the way, Cucurella, 60 mil. Wow. I didn't think it was that bad a signing, but man alive, this guy, I don't know what happened. Where's his drive? Where's his passion? Was absolutely to blame for the goal that West Ham got. Just absolutely shocking. Close down your man. Listen, if you can't do anything else, just be a warm body. Just be a bollard, an obstacle. Didn't do that. They got a cross in. West Ham got a scuffed goal. And Cucurella, man, he was pointing at people after that. Mate, look in the mirror. That's the Spider-Man meme. You're the problem. He was terrible in this game, and I've seen him been terrible a few times. When Man City just doubled up on him and bullied him down that flank. I don't even know if he has a future at the club. After this season, maybe Potter likes him or whatever. But yeah. Been a terrible sign. All the fans know it. But I'll also just say, were Chelsea unlucky at the end? There was a penalty shout, wasn't there? An unbelievably obvious handball by Soucek. He's falling down. He deliberately sort of like goes, meh. Oh, I'm falling over. I'm just going to tip the ball away in case it's on target. Goes out for a goal kick. VAR looks at it and just decides no penalty. I don't want Chelsea getting results, obviously, you know, because I'm a football purist. But I will just say, at the end of the day, that a referee can't decide that. And I think according to Match of the Day, they were saying it's the head of the person of VAR, the person in charge of all VAR instructions, couldn't see that as a penalty. Well, that's why the league's fucked, lads, because the standard of refereeing ain't improved, and we're still getting stuff wrong with VAR. And so it's not the tools, it's the refs. I don't know why refs can't get it right. I don't know why refs don't even understand the offside rule anymore. I just don't understand it. I've just seen crazy, terrible decisions all season. Just embarrassing. And this was another one. And, you know, Chelsea would have had a late penalty, probably win the game off that. We're probably having a different talk. But at the end of the day, I mean, look, this should have been out of sight in the first half, but you haven't got anyone to put it in the back of the net, so whatever. You know, architects of their own downfall in that regards. Arsenal-Brentford. Brentford managed to grind out a point thanks to an incredible individual performance by Tony. It's 1-1. Trossard got his Arsenal goal. He's up and running now at his new club. And look, I thought Arsenal, they weren't as bad as they were against Everton, but at the end of the day, it was sort of, you know, it weren't vintage Arsenal. It wasn't vintage Arsenal. Martinelli looked a bit muted. They subbed him for Trossard, who obviously got the goal. Partey looked a bit out of sorts in the centre of the park, not his usual sharp self. And you could tell there was just a bit of a nervousness. Like Saliba got caught out a few times, seemed to be a little bit frustrated, but, you know, got caught the wrong side of his man. Tony just gave that back four a torrid time as well. And you could tell there wasn't, you know, as good as the Arsenal defence is, you know, I rate it, there wasn't you know, there's not a big man in there. There's not a big man, you know what I mean? Someone who's going to say to Tony, like, you're not going to wrestle me. Like, try it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just a defender you just know is going to make your life miserable. Nah, Tony was the man in this game. Clearly man of the match. But, again, another match just ruined by a blatant offside that didn't get called. They're doing this thing now with VAR where you have like a limited amount of time to look at something, and so what ended up happening was there were like multiple offsides from a set piece for Brentford where Tony got the equaliser, and they spent so long looking at one that was maybe marginal or arguable that they didn't call one that was so obvious. And it was like, there's two offsides in that fucking set piece. Like two, not one, two. And they're both really clear cut, you know. Do you need VAR? Like, I was watching it going, well, he's fucking goal side. He's goal side. I'm blocking the defender running back. So you can't say he's not interfering with play. Like, if I'm in the way and the defender is trying to pull me out the way so they can be where they need to be, I'm definitely interfering. I mean, like, there's no argument about it whatsoever. And then on top of that, you've got a header flick on for a guy who's offside who then sets up the goal. This is easy stuff. This is stuff you should be catching with the naked eye, you know? So let alone having the luxury of 3 minutes of being able to rock and roll back and forth on the, you know, replay machine. So, yeah, just crazy that they weren't able to spot this. And Arteta definitely had a point this week. Like, the refs have not done him a favour. I think I did write down his comment. He said, if that's not offside, then they've changed the rules since August. There was some words to that effect. And I sympathise. I really, really sympathise. You know, at the end of the day, that's just, you know, that's just bollocks. It's just bollocks. It's just bollocks that you've lost to a goal. Now, all of that being said, Brentford definitely deserves something out of this game. Better team for large passages of this game. Brentford are no joke now. I think this was like a 10 or 11 game unbeaten streak, and in that time they've played like United, they played like Liverpool, they played Chelsea, they played Arsenal, they played Tottenham. It's fucking crazy like how good Brentford have been. And I think, you know, there were actual Brentford fans who were calling for Thomas Frank to be fucking fired. Well, you know, who are you? Like, do you even watch your own games? Like, it's mad. So I'm happy that Brentford and Brighton are basically going to be like challenging for Europe, because because they're the teams to me that are doing it right in a sustainable way and playing good football while doing it and making household names out of players that they picked up on the relative cheap. So I'm happy they got a point, but the reality is their goal was bogus, and Arsenal, they need to be writing a letter to the refs again and putting, we need to be having a talk about the standard of refereeing, because this is 2 terrible decisions again in a single day, and also not just terrible decisions, but decisions that were being given the other way at the start of the season, without any problems. So crazy. Other stuff to talk about, just quickly to wrap it up, probably worth mentioning Leicester battering Tottenham. Tottenham have had a strange old time, they beat City, and then Antonio Conte's gallbladder burst, or he had some fucking insane problem. There was like a mad clip where he called Harry Kane from hospital to congratulate him on getting the breaking Jimmy Greaves' record, and he was like, "I'm so happy for you. How do you?" It's like, fucking hell. It's what a mad club Tottenham is. I don't know how you guys do it, honestly, but whatever. The thing is, we all know how soft Leicester have been. Maddison's coming back in, fitness, back in the lineup. Big deal for Leicester City. But at the end of the day, Spurs, they just can't put it together. Newcastle have been wobbling. Newcastle can't win a game at the moment. We don't lose, but we can't win. We've had a bunch of draws. Drew again today with Bournemouth. Give me a break. And so Tottenham have to take advantage of these games. Like Leicester City, it's a gimme. But no, obviously Lloris got injured as well. I thought that'd be a blessing in disguise for Tottenham. Lloris has had some nightmares. What's happening? Instead, what ended up happening was Tottenham took a lead. Bentancur with a little tap in. All good. They didn't look amazing, but, got the lead, right? What are we going to do now? We just close it out, right? We get at them in midfield and we close it out. Well, once again, Tottenham's dysfunctional midfield strikes, and Leicester City just had the run of it. They were able to bypass Tottenham's midfield every time they lumped the ball forward. It was ridiculous. Here's what would happen. Every time they attacked, it would be a ball from defence over Tottenham's midfield to Iheanacho. Iheanacho holds it up. Their midfield gets ahead of the despairing Tottenham midfield who was scrambling, not tracking runs, not getting tight on their mans, coming back from way advanced positions, and then they would use that to basically create space, get separation from defenders, and put in passes and have shots against a standing keeper who was Ben Foster, 39 years old, just been in free agency, doing podcasts every day. So, 4-1 to fucking Leicester. This is mad. And you know what? It could have been worse. Leicester really had so many chances in this game. Maddison was great. Iheanacho was, for me, listen, I love a hold-up man. You know what I mean? I don't mean a bank robber. I'm talking about, someone who actually holds up the ball. Maddison, I think, got man of the match officially. It's Iheanacho for me. He was just a nightmare. And everything you could say about Ivan Toney against Arsenal, you could say here, Iheanacho against Tottenham. I thought he was brilliant. Every time he got the ball, he could hold it up, let his midfield get advanced to the play, and he did something with it. He had end product repeatedly. Super happy for Maddison. Obviously, Newcastle probably not going to buy him now. I would have loved to have had him at the club. And Maddison, you might have some decisions to make at the end of the season. But you can see his heart is fully in it for Leicester. Great performance today. Harvey Barnes, great performance from him. Got a goal. And I think Rodgers is on fraud watch for sure. I think Rodgers is he's benefited from some sort of mad contract clause where they can't afford to fire him or something. Because I think any other gaffer is out. But now they're out of the relegation zone. They're above Forest. They're knocking on the door to Palace. Villa got tuned up not that long ago. Put it this way. Leicester are on 24 points. Liverpool are on 29. As of recording this. So, say what you will about him. Rodgers has done enough to keep Leicester up. Tottenham have got to be asking themselves, how bad do you want Champions League football? Because this was really embarrassing and doesn't bode well. Conte looked like a ghost on the touchline as well. There was no fire left in him. He's just come out of the surgery. Looked pale, probably shouldn't have been there. Credit to him, I guess, for turning up, but man. And then, look, just want to end on the narco man. What's crazy Nathan Jones going to say today? Well, as I said, You know, Southampton, they get 1-0 up against Wolves. Wolves get a player sent off. By the way, talking about bollocks decisions, Wolves had a player sent off, and I don't know why. It's one of the maddest decisions I think I've seen. They sent off Lamina for 2 yellow cards, and the second yellow was because he approached the referee, and Neves said that he approached the referee. He was the third person to approach the referee. He didn't say anything, but because the ref wanted to make a point that he wasn't going to be surrounded by players, he just threw a yellow card out to a player he knew already had a yellow card and put them down to 10 men for a half. And that is, again, just, I don't know what kind of pathetic small man you have to be to do something like that, but you're not in control of a game. You're not in control of a game as a referee if you're throwing out shit like that. But anyway, Southampton, they go 1-0 up. It's all looking rosy. It's good, you know, like Sulemana is like rapid. He's really putting the Wolves defenders, you know, like under a lot of pressure because they know one mistake and he's going to get the ball and they cannot catch him. Nearly had a goal just from that. Like, it's actually, you know, crazy. You know, this was his full debut. He came on in the last game, but this was, you know, just a masterclass in just the Nathan Jones basket case Southampton that he's created. And in the end, it should have been comfortable. They should have closed this game out. They lost 2 goals. One was just sloppy, and then the other one, 2 Southampton players tackle each other in the middle of the park. Everyone's panicking, everyone's flapping, all their heads are gone. Just embarrassing. I mean, what's even more embarrassing? Wolves down to 10 men at half time. They had more possession than Southampton, like nearly 60% in the game. Like, how's that even possible? How do you not know how to use an extra man? That's how far out of his depth Nathan Jones is. And as I said, when he came out after the game, I was like, right, okay. Like, just don't do the interview. Send your assistant manager. Use that button in Football Manager. Sometimes it's the right thing to do. Like, just don't be there. But no, he said, Wolves going down to 10 men made us apprehensive. And it was like a free hit for them. It was like something mad. It's like, what are you babbling about, mate? When asked as well, right at the end of the interview, can you keep Southampton up? God willing. God's not helping you, mate. God's been absent from Southampton for quite a fucking time. Anyone who lives there will tell you that. So I don't know what you're talking about, but you're nanas, mate. You've lost it, like. So there's strong reports coming in after the games that he's done. He's toast. They're gonna announce that he's out in the next day, and they're just gonna try and muddle through. So I don't know, but what an embarrassment. And Southampton, for me, they look to be down. They look to be done. I just don't see how they can turn their fortunes around, even with players that they've got. Yes, still, you know, whatever it is, 16, 17 games left in the season. I just don't see them getting enough points. They're on 15 after 22 games, you know, played, and yeah. It's really bad. Everyone else looks to be improving. You take Everton out of the equation. West Ham, surely too good to go down. Wolves kicking up the table. Leicester are out there. Nah, like for real, you got problems. Like you know, you haven't improved, and almost everyone else has. So yeah, that's that. Game over, as they say in the Saw movies. So yes. That's the Prem review. Sorry it was all kind of cobbled together, and if I missed out any stories, I didn't talk about your club this week. Don't worry, there's plenty more weeks to go in the Prem. But that's that. I'm going to get back to some other, sadly, esports related work. For now, tell me what you think in the comments. You know, let me know if you've been following this. Maybe you're an Everton fan with renewed hope. I'd love to hear from you. We are thinking about doing an esports phone-in at some point this season. So be ready for that. Get on the Discord, like, comment, subscribe, all that Zoomer shit. And I'll see you on the next episode of Prem Review. Take care.